Given how assertive Turkish foreign policy has become in North Africa and across the region, do you have a clarity of what you believe democracy and pluralism is becoming in that area or not?
Yes, I think this, as I said, is a historical process. The tiger will not go back. Let's give me an interesting example from my personal life. One day, my youngest daughter, 10 years old, 12 years old, came to my library in my house and saw my old typewriter. She was shocked. She said, "What is this, my father?" As if she discovered an archaeological discovery. And then I told. I wrote that my PhD thesis with that typewriter and Mubarak was in power. Then computer came, Mubarak was in power. Internet came, he was in power. Facebook came, he was in power, but he was not able to resist Twitters. So now it is over. Therefore, I say psychological threshold. Old regimes will not come back. And now—
You're sure of that?
Yes. Why? Because if there is one very secret term of Arab Spring, it is dignity. Abu Azizi burned himself because of dignity, not because of food or any other thing. Tahrir Square people, same, for dignity. Or in Libya. Now, and democracy is the best system to respond to the search for dignity of human beings. Therefore, democracy is important. Not because of mechanisms or other legal frameworks, because democracy is the best system to respect human dignity as individual being. Therefore, even the question, is democracy winning, is secondary. Is Arab individual winning? Are Arab societies winning? Yes, they are winning because now, even if they oppose to the elected president now in Tahrir, they can do. They can defend their dignity. That psychological threshold is over. But therefore, I gave the example of Eastern Europe. How many years did it take to have institutional democracy in Balkans? Still, we have challenges in Balkans. Similarly, in the next 10 years, we will be having many challenges in the Arab world. But we should not be acting as Orientalists. We should not be thinking that can Arabs achieve democracy? I can say, confidently, yes, Arab societies, Muslim societies can have the same level of democratic system because now they are fighting for their dignity and they will do so forever. If somebody does wrong, he will be acted like Mubarak or like others. Therefore, I am sure that Arab masses and Arab individuals will win democracy.
I think we're getting a consensus here, and certainly some of those who are emailing and tweeting are suggesting exactly that. Yes, but not immediately. Let's broaden it beyond North Africa to Myanmar, if we can, to Yin Mon Han from Myanmar. You work as a mentor in Rangoon. Look at the extraordinary changes there have been in your country. Do you believe democracy is winning?
I do believe democracy is winning. And I wanted to ask the panelists, my country, Myanmar, experienced a democratic transition process the same year as the Arab Spring, but it was a very different process. It was quite gradual, and it has been quite gradual, and relatively peaceful, fingers crossed. But I wanted to ask you if there are certain universal factors that unite all of these diverse processes that will determine the success of democracy. And if so, who gets to decide, national community or citizens?
And to be clear, do you relate to what you saw in the Arab world 2 years ago, given what happened in your country almost 6 years ago? Is it the same process or something different?
I think it was the same process from a citizen level, but we were lucky enough that the government started to implement reforms before it got to a revolution phase.
What about the sustainability of it then,
Well,
Navi
I would say the tiger is still in the cage in Myanmar. The initiative, I think, was taken by people like Aung San Suu Kyi and the president to initiate reforms.
You're sceptical then, are you still?
Well, there's still a long way to go. We will get in there and work incrementally on a rights-based approach, but a long way to go. So it wasn't a call by the people and the voices of youth, and this is why it's so encouraging. The voice of the youth in Cairo and Tunisia was heard by the rest of the world and taken up on the streets across major cities as well.
But what we need to be clear is, given what we've just heard represented in Myanmar, whether that generation is satisfied by the kind of politics you see changing. Foreign Minister, do you believe there is a systematic change to politics which can only be for the better or not?
Yes, there could be such a change, but the difference, I fully agree, between Arab Spring and Myanmar. I had a chance to visit Myanmar last summer during the problems in Rohingya region, and I had a chance to meet with President and Son and everybody. There, the regional environment is also different, and ASEAN is playing a significant role, like EU played for Balkans. And that regional environment is encouraging the system to be changed. But in the Arab world, unfortunately, there is not such an attractive new regional atmosphere. That is the difference. But at the end of the day, there may be different experiences, but the sustainability of democracy will be achieved by the citizens, by the will of the people, not only by the support of international community.
Amr Moussa, you once worked for President Mubarak. Do you believe it's exactly what we've heard from the Foreign Minister?
Yes, I think so. I think of three things, 3 points. First, the tiger is not going back to the cage. And with Ahmed, that the previous regime or any previous regime in the Arab world is not coming back. And the third point is what was referred to by the Myanmar representative. You talked about graduality, gradual process, and peaceful process. We hope that our process will be peaceful, but it is a result of a revolution, not a gradual process. This is the difference between your case. Whether it would be violent, would go into violence, this depends on all the parties of the equation in Egypt and in the Arab world, because the Egyptian people will not accept to be duped into a system that brings back another kind of dictatorship.
There are so many questions to raise on this very simple question, is democracy winning? Ken Roth, you're Executive Director of Human Rights Watch. You audit what's happening not just in North Africa and the Middle East, but right around the world. What's your view of whether, quote, democracy is winning? Just one moment, Ken, we're going to turn the camera, first of all, to Ken Roth. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Ken Roth, Executive Director of Human Rights Watch, your audit. A lot of optimism here, but what's your view?
Well, Nick, I'm surprised that we're this far into the debate and we haven't talked about Islam. And that, for many, is the biggest worry about the prospects for democracy in the region. We shouldn't be surprised that after dictatorship, when civil society and moderate parties were suppressed, that Islam does well. But the big question is, will, say, Egypt turn into Turkey, where you've got an Islamic ruling party, but Islam is not used to suppress people's rights, or will it turn into Iran? That's the big question. If you look at Egypt today, we don't really have the answer yet. The constitution has some problems with it. It basically abdicated civilian oversight over the military. On the key questions for me of free expression, free religion, and women's rights, the Constitution basically kicks it down the road. It's qualified, and it's going to be interpreted over the coming years. I think the answer to those questions, whether those rights succeed, will have to tell us, will dictate whether democracy, and in the end, is victorious or not.
Foreign Minister Davutoglu, of course, Turkey is going through an enormous self-examination on this very issue as well.
Yes, but just one correction. We never claimed that our party was an Islamic party, because we think it is not right to call a party by a religion, because a party may do mistake or may do something wrong. And it is better not to identify. What we have been trying to achieve in Turkey is full respect to all human rights and all democratic values. And what we achieved in the last 10 years is that democratization in the sense of a balance between security and freedom, and a very dynamic program of economic development which produces services for the people. That's very important, otherwise democracy cannot be sustainable. And third, very active foreign policy based on our geography, which gives a self-confidence to the people. Here the quest of the people, the search of the people is the dignity as well as economic development together. Whether democracy is successful depends on this, not on other rhetorical approaches.
Is Islam a threat to democracy? Do you see that, Navi Pillay, or not?
I don't see Islam or any other religion as a threat to democracy. One can be an adherent of Islamic faith or any other faith and still be a Democrat. There has been a myth out there for a very long time that people in the Middle East, people in Myanmar, are somehow different and do not have the same aspirations for rights as do people in other parts of the world. And it's people who subscribe to that myth who locked up the tiger. So I feel the answer does lie in international human rights law, and there's been a skewed monopoly of resources and wealth by the elite. There has to be an equal distribution of wealth, a response to the demands on the street.
Amr Moussa, but that's a critical question which Ken Roth has raised. He says we should have raised it even earlier in this discussion, whether the Islamist tendencies are actually going to distort the advantages of democracy in a country like Egypt.
No, not at all. I agree with the judge, and I know your point of view, and it is a prevailing one. But it has nothing to do with the religion. Democracy is democracy. Islam or Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism, this is a different equation altogether. There is confusion. Until now, there is confusion. But it is very clear to us, the opposition in Egypt, that we shouldn't mix things or confuse things. Islam does not make it difficult for democracy to flourish. Democracy flourished in Turkey, for example, and it is a Muslim country. And it did the same in Egypt years back, decades back. And Egypt was always a Muslim nation. So please, this confusion, deliberate confusion of Islam and democracy, and conflict between Islam and democracy is a wrong theory.
Ken Roth, it's confusing. It's a wrong confusion.
What Amr Moussa is saying is what the opposition would like, and which I actually agree with, is for us Islam not to somehow interfere with democracy. And that is one version of Islam, which, frankly, the ruling party in Turkey represents. Another version, which we all fear, say a more Salafist version, would justify or use certain extreme interpretations of Islam to undermine basic rights of women, free expression, and free religion. And that's where I worry. And while we all want it not to be the case, that is a threat. And I think we have to be vigilant to that threat. We all frankly hope that it turns out where Islam is just like, say, the Christian Democratic Party in Germany. It's a religious name, but it doesn't undermine democracy. But we all know that there are other versions as well, with Iran being the perfect example.
He is right in saying that there are people who believe so, or who want to have it, the Islamic Republic. This happened before. But the opposition to that, and through democracy, and we believe that the Egyptian people now is moving very steadily away from those theories. They have seen it, because it is not a question of Islam and democracy. It's a question of a government that has been elected as the representative of the religious trend, and then did nothing. And then there is failure, and there people are angry. Therefore, it is not the religion, it is how governments perform. Here in Egypt, you will see this shift in the public opinion. It is not Islam and democracy, it is performance. It is serving the people or not. And you cannot do bad because you are Muslim. This is wrong. Or do good just because you are a Muslim or Christian. It is also wrong. It is democratic means, democratic theory, democratic practice, and good governance.
Well, let me push this, because it's clearly a very critical issue. Pew, the research center, they did a poll last year which concluded a substantial number in key Muslim countries want a large role for Islam in the political life. Majorities in Jordan and Egypt believe laws should strictly follow the teachings of. What other implications do you see in the region?
Well, let me try to put it in a little broader context. Isaiah Berlin spoke of the two kinds of freedom: positive freedom and negative freedom. Freedom from and freedom to, okay? So I think what we've seen in the Arab world with the various democratic revolutions is the freedom from stage, freedom from autocratic rule. Now we're in the freedom to stage. And the question is, freedom to do what? Some people want more freedom to have more religion in their lives and to govern more aspects of their social and economic life. Some people want more freedom to be more sectarian, to be more Shiite or to be more Sunni. And some people want the freedom to be citizens, okay? Citizens with equal rights and responsibilities. But my own experience in this, Nick, is that I really think I would share Amr's point of view in this sense. I think it's all about the context within which people live their lives, okay? India is the second largest Muslim country in the world. I mean, there's probably more Muslims there than in Pakistan, all right? So Islam reflects itself politically, socially, religiously in a certain way there. I really believe when people live in an environment of security and one with economic opportunity, that's going to be reflected in religion and how they express it. And I would point to Iraq. I mean, you know, no one likes to talk about Iraq because America was there, and you know, it's like against the law to talk about what happened there. But I think it's very important to actually study the evolution there. When it was rampant insecurity and economic devastation, you had the height of sectarianism. People forget Iraq's third election, the Iraqi people demanded that the major parties run on multi-sectarian tickets, including Shiites, Sunnis, and Kurds. Both Alawi and Maliki ran on multi-sectarian. Now that's broken down as security has broken down. So I don't think you can talk about religion, you know, X the context of security and economic growth.
Ahmed Davutoglu, what's your view of this very sharp challenge?
Yes, I think the basic threat to democracy in the Muslim world is not Islam, but it is this approach, this Orientalist approach by some other observers. Once we analyze Christian societies, we don't make this type of classifications, although we know, even in the United States, there are people who are suggesting to bomb Kaaba. Or there are people in Europe like Breivik trying to create a new holy crusade against Muslims. First of all, we have to understand Quranic teaching. I know Quran. I read all Quran and several times, of course. The basic value of Quranic teaching is human dignity. And the basic value of democracy is human dignity. They do not contrast each other. The basic mechanism to find a truth in Quran is collective rationality, what we call ijma. And the basic mean in democracy to find a solution is collective rationality. Why do we do election? Because we believe that collective rationality does not mislead you. And Islam, we have all these norms. If we go really to Quranic teaching. But if you refer to some misinterpretation, those misinterpretations are in Israel. You can see even the second biggest party in Israel, they try to cleanse all Muslims from West Bank. And you can see in many other societies. Therefore, Nick, the problem is mentality. Now, in the Muslim world, mentality is changing. And that mentality is respecting to human dignity, respecting. I met with all the youth leaders in Tahrir. They are committed Muslims, but they want the same thing what European youth want. And we know Turkey is one of the most modern societies in the world with a huge economic success. What they demand, my people in Konya, which is known as one of the most conservative, but they ask us, what do you achieve to make Turkey successful? What do you achieve as services in my country? That is the main demands, and Islam in that sense is not barrier, the opposite. If we address to the main values of Quran and Islam, we will see there is no contradiction, and we have to promote this approach to close this gap, rather than trying to provocate and trying to create as if there is a huge gap which is not possible to close between Islam and democracy. And these are not two criteria, two opposite alternative criteria. Democracy is something, a political system. Islam is a religion of values, and they do agree on basic issues.
David Pillay.
Yeah, but we do have to address Ken Roth's concern, though, about the discrimination against women.
Yeah, that's
yes,
right.
so that I think I would agree with Ken. It's more visible, very many harmful practices against women. On the other hand, it is being addressed. I love that Algeria came up with the quota for women parliamentarians, and they have 146 women in parliament. I think it's better than the United States even.
I fully agree with this, but it is not linked to Islam or anything. I can tell you there was more discrimination in Turkey when there was some radical secularist approach against Muslim students wearing hijab. This is all type of discrimination is wrong, whether based on this ideology or the other ideology. I fully agree. Women's rights should be supported, and that is another.
I would just add, though, to Ken's point, which is that I don't think the concern of Copts, Christians in Egypt, for their rights and inclusion under the current government is just an Orientalist invention. There are Muslim parties there that have expressed views that are deeply exclusionary. I think they're not the majority, but I don't think it's just an invention of foreign Orientalists.
Right.
That
Well,
would be-
let's keep moving. There are so many issues here to at least try and cover and acknowledge. I'm getting a couple of emails here saying that that certainly Islam is no obstacle to democracy, but so-called Democrats can use religion for their purposes, especially in countries with a high level of illiteracy and poverty. But let's move it forward to the danger of from extremism, to Vali Nasser, who is Dean of the Johns Hopkins School in Washington, D.C., and recently in the US government. The way, particularly after what's been happening in Mali and Algeria, this could all be derailed.